Barcelona, 2007. A 20-year-old Lionel Messi rolls up his sleeves for a charity calendar and lifts a 6-month-old boy into a tub of warm water. The family won the photo session in a neighborhood raffle and then hid the picture for years. Because 17 years later, that baby would be wearing Messi's number 10. Munich, Euro 2024 semi-final, Spain versus France. A 16-year-old boy cuts in from the right, opens his body and bends a shot off the post and in. The youngest goalscorer in the history of the European Championship. Pelé's record gone. This is the story of Lamine Yamal, the prodigy who wasn't supposed to be real. He was born on the 13th of July 2007 in Esplugues de Llobregat, just outside Barcelona. But his story really begins 15 miles up the coast, in a tight grid of apartment blocks called Rocafonda, a working-class immigrant neighborhood in the city of Mataró. His father, Munir Nasraoui, came from Morocco. His mother, Sheila Ebana, from Equatorial Guinea. 2 continents, 1 small apartment, and a boy who would grow up speaking the languages of the courtyard, Spanish, Catalan, and the football of the street. The postal code of that neighborhood, 08304, would one day be flashed to a global television audience by the boy who lived there. But we'll get to that. Before the goals, before the records, there is the photograph. In 2007, Barcelona and UNICEF launched a charity calendar. A local raffle in Mataró selected a family, the Nasraouis, to bring their newborn for a photo session with a young Argentinian forward who had not yet won a single Ballon d'Or. The family kept the picture quietly tucked away for years, his father later told Spanish media, afraid, he said, that the comparisons would crush a child before he could grow. At 7 years old, in 2014, Lamine walked through the gates of La Masia, Barcelona's famous academy, the same building that had produced Xavi, Iniesta, and the man who had once bathed him. He was small. He was skinny. He was, the coaches said, different. He played with his head up. He played with a kind of arrogance that wasn't really arrogance, it was certainty. A 6-year-old who already knew what was happening behind him. April 29th, 2023. Barcelona versus Real Betis. Xavi Hernandez, now head coach, calls a 15-year-old off the bench. 15 years, 9 months, 16 days. The youngest player in the entire history of FC Barcelona. He touches the ball. He doesn't look afraid. 15. Younger than the boys he'd been playing with in the under-19s a month before. By the start of the next season, he wasn't a curiosity. He was a starter. Right wing, Camp Nou, the badge of his childhood club on his chest. The kid Xavi had said wasn't ready for 2 more years was suddenly indispensable in 2 more months. He scored his first senior goal for Barcelona that autumn, and in doing so, broke another record, becoming the club's youngest ever goalscorer. The numbers were starting to stack up faster than anyone could write them down. The Spanish press tried anyway. El nuevo Messi, they wrote. The new Messi. Every right-footed Barcelona winger gets that headline. Most of them buckle under it. In September 2023, Luis de la Fuente called him up to the senior Spain squad. 16 years old. He made his debut against Georgia and scored. The youngest goalscorer in the history of the Spanish national team. 16. And Spain's next great hope. By the summer of 2024, the football world had no idea what was about to happen in Germany. Spain went to the Euros without the favourites tag. France had Mbappé. England had Bellingham. Germany had home soil. Spain had a coach the press kept questioning, and a 16-year-old kid on the right wing. The group stage was a statement. Croatia, Italy, Albania. Spain won all 3. And every time the ball moved to the right side, that thin teenage frame was making veteran defenders look like cones. In the quarter-final against the host nation, Germany, in Stuttgart, he set up the equaliser. Spain won in extra time. And then came Munich. July 9th, 2024, the day before his 17th birthday. France lead 1-0. The ball rolls to him, 25 yards out, on his favoured left foot. He takes one touch, he looks up, and he bends it, high, dipping, into the top corner off the inside of the post. 16 years, 362 days. Pelé's record, set at the 1958 World Cup, finally broken.
And then the celebration. 3 fingers. 0. 4. 304. The postal code of Rocafonda, the neighbourhood that raised him, broadcast to half the planet. Back in Mataró, the streets emptied into the bars, and the bars emptied into the streets. The boy from the block had put their 5-digit zip code into the history books. The final. Berlin, England, Spain win 2-1. And a 17-year-old, he had turned 17 the day before the final, lifts the European Championship trophy. The youngest player ever to win a major international men's tournament. Named Young Player of the Euros, a boy holding a continent's biggest cup. And somewhere, in a quiet corner of a Mataró apartment, a 17-year-old photograph of a baby in a tub suddenly didn't seem so embarrassing anymore. He came back to Barcelona that summer, and Hansi Flick handed him a shirt. Number 10. The number Messi had worn. The number Maradona had worn. The number Ronaldinho had worn. It is the heaviest jersey in club football. They gave it to a 17-year-old. And the 17-year-old wore it like he'd been waiting for it his whole life. Barcelona swept through the 2024-25 season. La Liga title, Copa del Rey, Spanish Super Cup, a domestic treble. In the Champions League, they ran into Inter Milan in the semi-finals and lost a 7-goal thriller across 2 legs. He scored, he dazzled, and he went home without the trophy he'd grown up watching his club lift. But individually, the year was historic. Copa Trophy winner, best young player in the world for the 2nd consecutive year, La Liga MVP. And then came the night in Paris, September 2025, the Ballon d'Or ceremony. The award went to Ousmane Dembélé after a remarkable season at Paris Saint-Germain. Lamine Yamal finished 2nd, 18 years old, the 2nd best footballer on the planet by the sport's most watched vote. He smiled politely. He clapped for Dembélé. And the question hanging in the room, when, not if, wasn't really a question at all. But fame at 18 is not just trophies. It is everything that comes with them. In July 2025, Lamine turned 18. He threw a party. The party drew widespread media coverage, and then a Spanish government inquiry. Spain's National Disability Association, the ADEE, filed a complaint alleging that performers with dwarfism had been hired as entertainment at the party, which, they argued, would violate a 2022 Spanish law protecting the dignity of people with disabilities. The government's Social Rights Ministry opened a formal inquiry. Lamine denied any wrongdoing in a statement, saying the dignity of every guest had been respected. The inquiry's outcome was reported in the Spanish press over the months that followed. It was, for a teenager who had spent his life being told he was special, a first hard lesson in what the spotlight actually costs. There were other stories too. A high-profile relationship that played out in tabloids, cameras on his family's apartment, a father, Munir, who occasionally answered the cameras when his son chose not to. The price of being a generational talent at 18 is that the world watches you grow up in public. And on the pitch, the body started to push back.
a persistent groin issue early in the 2025-26 season, time on the sidelines, whispers about workload, a teenager already past 200 senior appearances. Hansi Flick told reporters repeatedly that they had to protect him, that a player carrying this much football at this age was a body still finishing growing. Spain's coach said the same. 2 clubs, 1 boy, 1 back. And then came the tournament he had been pointed at his entire life, the 2026 World Cup. Co-hosted across North America, but for Spain, the European champions, the reigning Nations League winners, the favourites. He arrived carrying a hamstring problem. The medical staff cleared him. The coach, Luis de la Fuente, named him in the starting 11 for the opener. The country exhaled. And then Spain drew Cape Verde, 1-1 in the group stage opener. The European champions stumbled out of the gate. Lamine, visibly short of his sharpest, was substituted. The headlines the next morning were brutal. The Spanish press demanded answers. Was he fit? Was he overplayed? Was the whole thing, the 18-year-old carrying a country, too much too soon?
He is, as this is being recorded, still in the tournament. Still Spain's best player. Still, somehow, only 18 years old. The story of his World Cup is not yet written. But step back from this moment and look at the line that runs through all of it. A baby in 2007 in a plastic tub, held by a 20-year-old Argentinian who would go on to define a generation. A teenager in 2024, wearing that same Argentinian's number, on the same club's chest, in the same city, leading the same national team that man never could. A 3-digit number flashed to the world from a stadium in Munich, the postal code of a working-class block in Mataró, where the doors stay open and the kids play in the courtyards. That is the through line. Not the records, not the Ballon d'Or vote, not the number on the back. The through line is a neighbourhood. A neighbourhood that won a raffle, kept a photograph, and raised a boy who decided that when he became famous, the famous part would be the neighbourhood, not him. What happens next, at this World Cup and the ones after it, will decide whether he becomes the player his generation deserves. The injuries, the scrutiny, the weight of the number 10. None of those are guaranteed to bend in his favour. But for now, the boy from Rocafonda is doing what almost none of the prodigies before him managed to do. He is living up to it. In real time, in front of all of us. If this story stayed with you, subscribe to Beyond the Boots for more. The boots tell the story. We just follow the footsteps.